Great to have an opportunity to speak on part two of this bill, which is called the Budget Measures Financial Support for Newborn Children Bill. It's a bit of a mouthful and doesn't necessarily indicate how little support there is for newborn children, but still it's a step in the right direction, a small step, but a step in the right direction nonetheless. This part is the part that deals with the parental tax credit. And I note that this morning the Prime Minister was having breakfast with the Child Poverty Action Group up in Auckland. Well, I hope he's honest and I hope he's upfront with them, because they won't be fooled, by the way, very smart organisation. And I hope that he is clear with them that he has failed. He has failed to actually give financial support for newborn children and the most vulnerable and the poorest of families, because that's in fact what has happened. In fact, CPAG this morning issued a press statement pointing exactly that out. They say, unfortunately, the 2014 budget offers little else to assist the 205,000 poorest and vulnerable children in New Zealand, who fall well below the very low 50% poverty line. And that was a press statement from the Child Poverty Action Group that was issued this morning, and they're absolutely right, and it is in part two that actually bears this out. Because it's interesting that the vehicle that the National Party has chosen is the parental tax credit, because that parental tax credit is very targeted and, interestingly, does not target the lowest income people, It excludes the children of beneficiaries from having any support in this way. It excludes the children of students from having support in any way. And it excludes people who are on ACC payments, the children of people who are on ACC payments from having any financial support at all. So I think it's quite misleading that it says financial support for newborn children, as if it was all children. It of course is not, and the National Party with their Cabinet Club mates have moved to specifically exclude the people who are in the poorest. Well, you know, it's kind of interesting, because every time we talk about children and financial support for children and for parents, the National Party gets really rowdy. They get very rowdy and angry, actually, and it's really surprising that this continues to happen. I could understand it. Well, Mike Sapin says he's always angry, but in fact, he's at his most angry when we talk about financial support for children. They find it really very difficult to understand this concept. Mr. Chair, I do want to support the supplementary order paper in the name of Jacinda Ardern because what it does is it actually shows a huge gulf and a huge difference between the approach of the Labour Party and the National Party when it comes to financial support for newborn children. Under Labour's Best Start policy, every child will benefit. Every single child will benefit. Oh, well, Simon O'Connor, I think that's his name, says, no. And he's a little bit right. The people who earn more than 150,000 won't benefit from the $60 a week Best Start payment under Labour. But they do get the early childhood education component, and they will get paid parental leave. They'll get extended paid parental leave, and much more extended paid parental leave under a Labour government, by the way. But every single child will benefit from Labour's Best Start package. It's true, Simon. I know the National Party doesn't like that. They don't like the idea that all children would benefit, but that is a fact of Labour's Best Start package. So, Jacinda Ardern's supplementary order paper would mean that all the children who miss out under what the National Party is doing in part two, well, if Mrs Tolley would just stop yelling and screaming, well, she's saying tell the truth, and I am, $60 a week for all of the children who miss out under this package. But not only $60 a week for the first year for those children who are missing out under what National's proposing, and they are the poorest families, by the way, Mr Chair, but an additional, that goes on until the child's third birthday. under Labour's Best Start policy. For the poorest, Mr Chair, for the poorest families in New Zealand. And isn't that the issue that really needs addressing? Well, silence from the National Party benches finally, while I'm on my feet, a little bit of silence, because they don't want to answer that question. Labour's Best Start policy, and I'll challenge Simon O'Connor to say that this isn't true, gives $60 a week for the first year to all families earning $150,000. At least, because those families who are entitled to paid parental leave get even more than $60 a year for that period. So it's at least $60 a year. And then for the very poorest families, for those low-income families, those earning less than $50,000 per year, they will get $60 a week until that child's third birthday. And for those earning up to $70,000 a year, they'll get a proportion of that $60,000. Now, I really do want the Minister to take a call and explain. Well, look, see, all they can see is a cost. They can't see an investment in children. And isn't that the National Party through and through? Because they just see children as being a cost. They cannot see that that is the real way to a brighter future in this country. They are always in deficit mode. From the time that they've got into government, they have increased the country's debt. They have delivered deficits. They've got the slimmest of surpluses this year, and you'd think it would have never happened before. Well, there were 9 years of surplus under a Labour government, and that's what there will be from next year on when Labour returns to government as well, because it is Labour who knows how to actually deal with the issues they're trying to deal with here, the parental tax credit, because clearly under a Labour government there have been many more opportunities for jobs. Unemployment been at the lowest levels in the OECD under the previous Labour government. Under this government we've slumped to about, I think it's about 15th or 16th place in the OECD rankings for unemployment. So these are the real issues that need addressing. In part 2, instead, the government's trying to just pick and choose some winners of children in this, because by using the parental tax credit, they are casting the sort of judgments that we see time and time again from the National Party. Very, very good at judging other people's families. They are casting a judgment that the children of those less fortunate than them are not worthy. They are not worthy of this financial support for newborn children. That's what they've called this bill, and yet they are using Part 2 to deliberately exclude the most needy of those newborn children, the most needy. I'm looking forward to hearing the vote on the supplementary order paper put in by Jacinda Ardern. It does reflect the very comprehensive policy, and I do want to take issue with what the Minister said, albeit last night, because I didn't get an opportunity to respond at the time. He said his government's done all the policy work in this area. Well, I can see that what they've done is that they've looked at the very comprehensive work done at Select Committee through the bill, the very good Labour Party bill that extends paid parental leave to 26 weeks, and they've cherry-picked a bit of it. And then the part that they do need to do some more policy development on, they clearly have been lazy and haven't done the work, because if they had, their proposed extension to eligibility for paid parental leave would be in this urgency motion today, and it's not. It's not been debated. So clearly, the Minister hasn't done the policy work that he claims to have done. He hasn't done it. And it'll be interesting to see whether that bill gets introduced before the House rises in July. I'm not sure that we'll see it this side of the election. And then I think the New Zealand public will be caused to ask themselves why that's not happening before the election. So, Mr Chair, Part 2 will be supported by the Labour Party because it is a little bit of improvement, but it's not a lot of improvement. And it does make some really worrying judgment calls about the National Party judging which children are worthy of the support and which children are not. Under a Labour-led government, that will change. There will be $60 a week available as financial support for newborn children, all newborn children, and that will be coming in next year. So the New Zealand public would be wise to look in detail at this. I know that the New Zealand public understands which side of the House it is that really understands the needs of children.
Jan Logie.
Mr Chair.